Hello and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam and I'm a real person. And today I want to talk to you about Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And this is a game where I pre-ordered this after seeing the demo. Not the demo, the trailer. That's the one. I actually didn't play the demo because I was like, well, I don't want any more spoilers for anything that's going to happen in this game. I saw the trailer, I was like, I'm sold already, and I pre-ordered it, because in my head, like many people, I was thinking, oh man, this is going to be the Super Mario Odyssey of Kirby games. And what it actually is more like the Super Mario 3D World of Kirby games. But, once I stopped being, disappointed that it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, I slowly started to really appreciate this game for what it is, what it's actually trying to do, and what it actually does. And hopefully by the end of the review, you'll kind of, even if you don't agree with me, you'll at least kind of see why. Also, there's a written review, you can check that. That's in the description. You can, if you want to see that, it's around. But let's get right into Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So Kirby in the Forgotten Land is a 3D platformer that's got a light collect-a-thon element to it. You start the game off with a nice little cutscene. You're like, oh, it's Kirby's on his home planet of Popstar and whatever, business as usual. And all of a sudden this rift opens up and he gets sucked into there along with a bunch of other inhabitants. And it's, maybe a little ironic maybe that Kirby gets sucked up into something for a change, but I guess it's probably happened in other Kirby games, right? At least he isn't being digested and turned into a weird starred matter and then shot out and dissipates into nothingness. So it's not quite giving him a taste of his own medicine, but it's I guess it's a sip. He gets a hint of what it's like, but and then he goes into there, wakes up in this on this beach in this unknown land, and you kind of make your way from the beach into a forest, and here's where you start learning the basics of gameplay. You can run and jump and slide. You can block and roll. You can kind of fly, do a little hover thing for a little bit. You can also, this is where you learn the copy abilities here. You can suck stuff up and shoot it out of your mouth, but at certain enemies, if you swallow them, you'll get abilities like, oh, I have the ability to spit fire, or I can now swing a sword around, that kind of stuff, right? It just depends on the enemy that you digest. And you can get that knocked out of you if you get hit, but you have a health bar, so you don't necessarily die just because you get hit or lose your copy ability, but that's it's standard Kirby stuff, but just in case, this might be some people's first Kirby game, so I want to cover some of that stuff, okay? You go through this little forest area learning all the basics of the gameplay, and then you kind of come across this, there's this city that's abandoned and overgrown and stuff. It looks like people probably haven't lived there for a little while. And you go through here, and partway through going here, you find this car. There's a bunch of enemies around it, and there's a little cutscene. Kirby tries to suck up all the enemies. He ends up inhaling the car, but it's too big for him to swallow. And this is where you get something totally new to the Kirby series, is Mouthful Mode, where basically stuff that's too big, it just sits in your mouth, and you basically have a big Kirby skin over the giant object, and you can control that to give you different abilities, for example, the car that you get right away, and you can drive around, you can do a boost to get extra speed, and make these big jumps, break obstacles, take out enemies, that kind of thing. And there's a number of different mouthful modes throughout the game with different, properties based on the thing that you inhale. The only thing is that when you're in these, you can still get hurt when you're in these, but the only thing with them really is that they don't seem to like water, and also they don't allow you to do things like climb ladders, for instance, so there's a lot of times where you will have to basically just ditch them, and they're used for this certain sections or certain parts. So keep that in mind. You also keep your copy ability on you while you're in them, so that's kind of neat. So that mode gets introduced. Then you go through the town a bit more, and then you come across a big group of these different monsters. I think they're called the Beast Gang, or something like that. Don't quote me on. You can look it up. Whatever. They're like capturing all these Waddle Dees in cages. So and you're like, oh no, I gotta save them. And they capture this the character's called Elfilin. I believe that's it. I have to keep looking it up. That's basically like they get captured. You don't find out until after. Whatever. You go in, you fight a few enemies, you beat them, you unlock Elfilin from the cage, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, he's your friend now, and he was trying to help out those Waddle Dees too, and so now you two are a duo, and it just acts as your guide character to give you hints and translate things, do dialogue between characters, since most characters in the game don't talk. And it's like, okay, well, we're on a quest now to save all of these imprisoned Waddle Dees, and that's more or less the plot portion of that. You also you can play co-op, but I don't have anyone to play with, so I don't know what it's like to play with the bandana Waddle Dee or whatever that you can do as 2 players. I don't know how that mechanic works or anything with that. Sorry about that, but I did what I could, okay? So then you go from there and you're like, alright, so it's standard platformy stuff. And now we can go into like some proper levels, and you start playing levels. And for each level, basically, there's some kind of different, each world has its own theme, and every level tries to have some kind of different stuff in there fitting that theme. In the levels, the main goal is to save the imprisoned Waddle Dees. At the end of the level, if you beat it, you'll get usually something like 3 Waddle Dees at the end of it for beating it. As you're going through the level, there are hidden Waddle Dees, usually off the beaten path, that you have to find, and they'll unlock in order as you're looking for them. There are also some, I guess you'd call them mission-specific Waddle Dees, where basically you don't know what you're supposed to do necessarily, but as you go through, you might have to do things do something in a certain amount of time, do this without taking damage, water all these plants, or just little things here and there depending on the level and whatnot. And as you start to do them, or once you complete them, then they'll unlock and be like, oh, I got it. If you beat the level and you miss any of those, every time you beat it, it'll unlock a hint to what the objective is for something you missed. So then you can go back later to get it. And then the thing is, you want all these Waddle Dees because they'll help you, because once you get enough of them, or if you have enough of them by the final level of each world, you'll need a certain amount in order to break down the wall or whatever and enter the boss's lair. And these boss fights, basically each world ends with a boss fight, and eventually you'll be able to go back into the town. But I guess one quick thing to mention too between those, I suppose, is that every once in a while between levels, either just exploring the world map or by beating levels, you'll unlock treasure roads on the world map. And on those treasure roads, basically you're given a specific either Mouthful Mode or copy ability, and the entire level is based around that. You have a time limit to beat it, and if you do that, for winning that you'll get rare stones, which you can use in the town. So now let's talk about the town. In the main Waddle Dee town, this is kind of the hub area of the world. You can launch off to go back to the world map from there. There are a number of shops. You can use these coins to buy things in them, like power-ups and whatnot. You can also use the coins to buy these special figures. There's a machine that gives you randomly drops them out of there. Your collection. You can also find them randomly. There's just those within levels. You'll randomly get certain figures based on the level you got it in, that kind of thing. And you can try to get the full collection of figures, and you can display up to 3 of them in your house, which is where you can go to sleep and recover your health. You buy stuff by using the main currency is just these coins that you get for you find them throughout the levels and for doing little missions and things here and there. So there were some ways to earn coins and get those as you're going through anyways. That's just the main currency in the game, is the star coins. There's a Coliseum where you can fight through a number of battles in a row to try and win that for some prizes. Also for those figures, some of those figures, most of them you can get randomly through either level drops or the machine drops, but there are a few of them that you have to complete specific things. Like there's some mini games, for example, that you can do in the town to get some extra star coins, and you can sometimes get figures for those, for beating certain bosses. Doing certain things, you'll end up unlocking these special figures in these sets, which you'll need for 100% completion, I suppose. There's like a cinema in there where you can watch all these movies, which are basically the cutscenes of the game. There's like a sound test thing, like Waddle band shows up, that becomes the sound test. And there's also the blacksmith, which is where you'll use those rare stones. So the blacksmith, there's only I think 12 copy abilities in here, and it doesn't seem like that many. But the thing is, at the blacksmith, if you find the blueprints in the levels, it'll allow you to upgrade your abilities. And each copy ability already has a few different things it can do, usually, and it can be used in a variety of different ways. But by doing this, you make them usually stronger, like having your attack is stronger, sometimes it's more rapid, or sometimes it changes some of the properties of it. Like the sword might, like with that, you get the second level of the sword, it's like, oh, now you have like a shield when you're blocking, and it's a huge sword, it's slower, but it's a lot stronger. So, something like that, for example. So you can upgrade these, and also if you don't like the current highest level, you can always switch it back to a lower level at any point in different levels of it whenever through there. Plus the blacksmith also serves as a place to get used to all the different abilities and just go back and select whatever ability you want to go into a level. So it's kind of takes the place of the museum thing of the other Kirby games. And that's basically, as you get more Waddle Dees, you unlock more and more things to do in the town. Then eventually, as you start going to different worlds, because after you beat a boss, you'll unlock the next world. You can go there. Each world has a theme. There's an amusement park one. There's this snowy world. There's a beach world. There's different themes to them. And eventually, after you save enough Waddle Dees and get enough to progress to the end of the game to get be the final world, and then I'm not gonna give you spoilers on story stuff. You'll get then you'll get to the credits and whatnot, and you've beat the game. I mean, there's a lot of things I could say, I suppose, here, but you're gonna be doing the platforming stuff, and the idea of it is full 3D movement for the platforming. You can move the camera a little bit, but it's mostly fixed, and that's why I say it's more like Super Mario 3D World in that aspect. You don't have full 3D movement, and levels are still fairly linear in that sense, even with stuff off the beaten path. Well, after you do that, after the credits, if you feel like, you want to play more and be like, maybe there's some stuff I can get or whatever, I just want to, load my file up for whatever reason, play around and get better times on some of the mini games or the Coliseum or something, you go in and there's actually another area that's unlocked that is notably more difficult. Basically, in this world, every level consists of basically a marathon of every level of a particular world, and from the main game part, but with a different aesthetic and different collectibles for you to get throughout them. And if you can get all those, then there's another thing there to beat a new final boss, and then you unlock another final Coliseum, and all those have remixed boss fights at the end of each level, as if the remixed world bosses. And then you unlock a thing in the Coliseum that's one final challenge. It also has a very new, very end final new boss there. Best way to word that, I'm sure. And basically, then you're stuck with, things like all of those and all the collectibles and some of the blueprints and stuff. A lot of these things go towards the 100% completion if you want to go that far with it. Like, only a few things I think don't necessarily count towards that completion. And that's a lot of stuff to mention, I guess, for a game that is fairly simple. But I really, really ended up liking this game a lot because, while there seems like there's a lot of stuff there, I think a lot of it is just, it's fun and it flows. Like, visually, it's very bright and it's very vibrant and colorful. I really like how, like, vibrant the colors are. It's got good aesthetics for the different places, yet everything still feels like it's kind of in the same world of, like, oh yeah, and it's a lot of different, like, more industrialized kind of city building kind of stuff worked throughout the different areas, even throughout, like, the grasslands and whatever, the beach, the amusement park thing. Amusement park's really cool. I really like that, and, like, the snowy world are pretty cool. I like those areas a lot. Also, a lot of the levels are pretty memorable, too. Like, you might not remember the name of them, but, like, once you start kind of playing them, you're like, oh yeah, this is this level, because, some of, like, the, the way it looks, you're like, oh, it was in this place, and also the things that they do with, like, because with a lot of the copy abilities and the mouthful modes, they like to set up situations where it's fun to use those. Like, it's fun to have satisfying, like, oh yeah, this thing's really good for taking out a bunch of these enemies and doing a bunch of these things, and they're giving you the mouthful modes and the copy abilities and stuff right before the sections where they thought, like, this will be fun to do this stuff with this thing. It's not about, like, being super hard and challenging with that. It's more about, like, what's going to be really fun and, like, satisfying to, like, do with these things. So it's really fun, like, a spectacle to go through that while still feeling like you're actually doing it. It's not just, like, you watching a thing happen. So it's a really good balance between, like, being fun to do while still feeling like you're actually doing the thing that's fun, which is great. And, like, the sound design is really good too for that, so that's good, and the good animations, and I mean, music's nice too. I wasn't, like, blown away by the music. Like, some people are like, "Whoa, it's great." I liked it, but it wasn't super the most memorable music necessarily for me, I guess. But, like, yeah, it wasn't bad. That's what I'm saying. Like, the treasure roads, I really like those because they give you this spotlight. Like, you might not even want to use some of these copy abilities necessarily, but, like, they give you the treasure road thing, you do that, it's like, oh, it's fun to, like, actually, like, it gives you an excuse, it gives you a reason to actually use these, when otherwise you just pick your favorites for most of the levels and just keep using those. So I thought those were really cool, a cool way to really emphasize the different things the copy abilities can do, good, like, training for, like, other stuff you can do later. The combat system gets pretty deep, and, like, especially with, like, the rolling out of the way to get those perfectly timed dodges. Like, if you do that right, you can actually get, like, a slow-mo thing and get a few extra hits in and stuff. Having the right abilities to do the right, like, missions for, like, oh, the no damage things, or doing this or that and the other. Like, there's certain things where, like, different abilities, like, will help you out doing certain things, and it's really fun to, like, kind of play around with that and figure it out. And I do like that the end game stuff wasn't, like, super hard, or, like, whatever, the post game, but it was actually a challenge, whereas, like, most of the main game is really, it's good and it's satisfying to play just through that, and you won't feel like I have to do the rest of it unless you really want to see that 100%. But also you get enough where it's like, it's remixed worlds and bosses and some of this bonus stuff, so it's like you don't feel like you're missing out if you aren't able to beat it, even if you do start to attempt it. I think it's a really, really good job of, like, playing with that idea of, like, you don't have to do everything in the game, but it's still fun if you can and want to do that. So I think they found a really, really good balance with that. And just, it seems like, yeah, just a rare thing for some of these things to, like, crop up in a game like this. They're done really, really well. And of course, like, the way they do I love that the missions aren't, like, they don't spoil what you're supposed to do in a level until you've at least had a chance to try and figure it out for yourself, for the secret mission, Waddle Dees. And, like, they keep them in order when you're trying to find the hidden ones, and just, I think it's really, really helpful. I don't know, it's just nice. It's just designed in a really, like, nice way that's, like, fun and satisfying, and I enjoyed a ton of this stuff. Like, there's not a whole lot that I could really say negatively about this game, but there are some things, because it's not like this game is perfect, okay? So, one of the things is that... I don't even want to start. So some of the post-game stuff is tough. It's a big difficulty spike. I understand some people might feel kind of bummed that they can't do it. but it's like I said, it's not like that big of a deal because it's not like that unsatisfying. It's just it is a thing to note. But there are some things that are like that are tough to do. Well, like part of the postgame stuff gets kind of grindy too. If you need more rare stones, you want to upgrade all of your abilities to the max. That's a lot of time to grind rare stones. So not really much you can do about that. There's the collection thing I didn't like that much, just because it's, I guess, I feel like what they should have done with the collectible figure things was like, oh, it should have been that they are all set, like, these things are in each level, and that if you go find all the secrets and all the levels or whatever, all those, like, capsules, then you'll get all of the, and do all the other challenges and whatever, you'll end up getting all of the figures. But if there's something you can't find or can't do, then the machine for giving you random stuff should have given you those as like a way out of like, okay, well, I can't do this, but I still get it if I randomly get the drop there and throw some coins into it. I think that would have been better. Plus, like, and you can make, or like you have a store where you just pay a bunch of coins to get certain ones that are harder to get or whatever. I think that would have been a fine alternative. But they are pretty generous with the drop rates at least. So like it's not that bad anyway. It's just it's not a really great element. It didn't do a whole lot for me in the game. To display 3 of them in my house that I'm never going to. So I don't know. And some of the challenges can get kind of tough too. Not a whole lot of them, but some of them are kind of like I don't know. Some of the no damage ones. There's one where you got to beat like 2 wild frosties, and they're like the way at the end of the snowy bridge level, and you have to beat both of them without taking any damage. It's very hard. You only, to retry it, to retry it, you have to go, all the way through all the other stuff before then. And so that was like an annoying one. Tip for that one: just upgrade your fire ability. Take that one into battle, and try to get some fire damage over time on them, but prioritize dodging and getting away from them until at least one of them ends up getting chipped down by that fire damage and is knocked out, and then it should be a little bit easier. That's my tip. But, yeah, like some of the stuff can get pretty tough, and like I said, there's really not a lot to be upset about. Oh, the treasure roads have the goal time. You can if you hit this target time, the reward you get is a few extra star coins, which are really easy to just farm elsewhere. They don't count for completion percentage, so unless you just want to try and do that, and some of those are pretty brutal to get, like the Mouthful Mode with the stairs. Geez, it's a pretty tight time, even if you know what you're doing with that. So that one was really rough. So it's not really worth getting those unless you really care about getting the best times, and hitting all the target times is just a fun thing for you to do. Those are like the extra modes, like the ball balancing rolling minigame thing. The extra levels of those, there's not part of the completion either. So I didn't complete either of those things because I didn't need them for my completion percentage. And if there's not really a reason or not really a reward or something for them other than like just having the fun of doing them, and you don't really enjoy doing them in the first place that much, and it's like, why do them? And yeah. I don't know. It's a small thing, but it is the thing. I wanted to at least kind of press a few of these things. The game, it's not. The game isn't perfect. Okay, it's got a few things a few little things that could have maybe retooled and worked out. But there's not a ton we're complaining. At least we're not talking about like here's microtransactions to get the figures, and like here's all this DLC, and here's all the amiibo, and you need these things to do all the stuff in the like. No, they're not doing that shit to it. So like I should just count my blessings to be happy not doing that shit. I guess overall, the thing with Kirby and the Forgotten Land is that it's a game that I think has kind of revitalized some of my interest in playing games a little bit. Not that I was like disinterested, but what I mean is like it kind of reminds me of the stuff I used to like in games. It's a game that's like it's long enough to sink your teeth into, but it's not going to take you like 100 hours to beat this thing. It's not going to take you forever to do. You're not going to be playing this for like an entire year, chipping away at every little piece or something. The collect-a-thon elements are light enough where it's like it's fun to get the stuff, but you don't feel like there's just too many things to get, or they're like super insignificant or something. They do a really good job with that. A game that has memorable levels and really fun game design that's designed to just be fun and satisfying to do. Jumping Kirby into 3D, I guess, kind of. He's been in 3D-ish before. It's a closer step to full 3D. It's 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 a step along the road, and it's, I don't know, it's satisfying and it's fun and it's memorable, and it's one of those things where I guess even though this wasn't what I was expecting it to be, it ended up being something I think I needed to play to remind myself that, like, every once in a while you just need to forget about all of the hype trains and like the everybody talk about all this shit, all of the whatever. You need to just kind of like tune out all of the extra noise about everything. You don't have to worry about, DLC and roadmaps and all this other stuff. You get a game and you sit down and you play the game and just enjoy having fun while playing a game, because playing games is fun. And that's something that I think a lot of us forget sometimes, and this is a really good reminder. So, yeah, if you like Kirby and you like Super Mario 3D World, or you just think it looks fun from some of the gameplay stuff you saw in the video part, check it out. It's pretty good, and it might set up pretty high expectations for other Kirby games that might not live up to the similar thing. But hopefully we'll see even more Kirby games come out, like this and of this quality, and just I don't know, I like it. And even if we don't, that's okay too, because we already have this, and either way, that's good enough for me.